Hello everyone, thank you for coming out today. We're about ready to roll here. I am Mary Portelli, president of the West Pittston Historical Society, who sponsors this event. And we're thrilled to have you all out here today for this fantastic occasion. And at this time, I would like you to stand, if you are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance and the presentation of the colors by the Jeffrey Primo American Legion Host 542.
Present arms. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to recognize a few guests who are here with us today. First of all, Mr. John Jenkins, if you would like to stand, please. Mr. Jenkins contacted me about 5 years ago, and he is the man who is responsible for creating the endowment that cares for the Jenkins Harding Cemetery, and we are so ever gratefully indebted to him. We appreciate everything he has done, and it's helped our historical society to thrive too, because we've been able to use our funds not just for the cemetery but for our own programming as well. So thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
You're very welcome.
He's positive. And Representative James Haddock, I think you are here. There he is, right in the back. Thank you for coming out today. And our mayor of West Pittston, Ange Alfano.
Come
on,
Mayor, how are you? Come on, Mayor. Say a few words. Been watching you.
He's going to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. I just want to welcome everybody here. Glad to see the crowd growing each year. It's great to see everybody taking the time to come and learn our history. I appreciate the Historical Society doing this for us each year, and I hope everybody enjoys the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ange. At this time, I would like to remember a member of our board, a former member of our board, Bill Rowe, who passed away this past January. Bill was just an invaluable member to our organization. He was a member of our First to Fall committee, and largely what you see happening here is a great deal of his ideas. And I'd like to have a moment of silence for Bill, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Bill's love of history and his friendship and dedication were something we will always remember. So we are here today on this eve of the 250th birthday of our country to honor Benjamin and Stuckley Harding and others who are of our local Revolutionary War heroes. And they fought for the freedom of this great country. As many of you know, the Harding brothers were brutally massacred on June 30th of 1778 along the Susquehanna River, just a short distance above Jenkins Fort. The bodies of Benjamin and Stuckley were brought back to the fort where their mother, Lydia Gardner Harding, prepared them for burial in the space just across the street here where Judge Jenkins said, bury them here. And to this day, that space has not changed other than having additional graves added. But I always like to think that they were here before anything else in West Pittston. So we have a great debt of gratitude to them. Our friends from the 24th Connecticut Regiment Militia will be putting on a little display over here later on. We're going to do a memorial service and firing a volley to the Hardings and the other Patriots. So we will eventually be moving our over to the cemetery after our program today. The West Pittston Historical Society is honored to have this, our 5th annual First of All, be recognized as an official America 250 Pennsylvania event. So we were very, very grateful to have that recognition by the state. First of All was just created to really bring attention to this historic location and to really let folks in town know what this was all about. I know people who have lived in the town for decades and really did not know much about the cemetery. So it was important that we share that as a historical society and really start to bring attention to this space. Also, we've kind of developed it as a preliminary event to the Wyoming Monument ceremony, which will take place next week on the 4th of July on Saturday at 10 a.m. down at the monument. So we encourage you to attend that as well. And also on the weekend of the 11th and 12th of July, we have our friends from the 24th Connecticut Militia will be putting on a reenactment of the Battle of Wyoming. And that's going to be at Nesbitt Park on both Saturday and Sunday. There are brochures over here on the table. You can pick one of those up a little bit later, and they will be happy to have you attend. Also, one of our very special guests who is here today is Sue Hand. Right here, Sue, please stand, and RJ Tomsek. RJ has created our painting this year. RJ started out as a student of Sue's when he was 5 years old. And they both just did a little, not little, it was big. It was an art show for 3 days at the Trinity Church. And we had great attendance for that. And RJ has created the First of All painting this year. You may recall that Sue did the first 2 years. And this year we have a painting by RJ. It's up here. And we will be chancing that off at the end of September at our event that's taking place at the Montgomery Avenue School. But RJ, is there anything you wanted to say about that? No? All right, I'll talk. The painting was done this past year. He had some of our reenactors pose last year, and he created a painting based on them standing around. It's showing the area in the cemetery where the burial is, as it would have looked in 1778 on the day the Hardings were buried. So if anybody would like to take a chance on that, they are being sold over there. Bonnie, raise your hand. There we go. Bonnie will be happy to sell you a chance on the painting. And there are prints available as well that are in the back table. If you want to just purchase a print, we have those as well as some that Sue did the previous years. So we are grateful to have both of them here today with us. Thank you. And I will mention, I think I've mentioned it before, Sue is a descendant of the Hardings. Alicia, correct? She's descended from Alicia Harding. So she's also a family member. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Carl Rosenkrantz, who is the chair of the First of All Committee.
Thank you, Mary. The situation has been quite tense in the Wyoming Valley since John Jenkins escaped the clutches of the enemy and returned to the Wyoming Valley in the early part of June 1778. Sadly, not all on the continent supported the thought of a free country, separate from the dictates of a king 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. As an extension of their beloved Connecticut, lands were quite abundant in the settlement of Westmoreland. And many simply wanted a portion of that land to farm and raise their families, with little interest for much else. However, the month of June 1778 became much more than the pinnacle of the spring and summer planting. With news of an impending force of Indians, and most likely John Butler and his Royal Greens, there was much more to consider than seeing and tending to the crops. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stephen Harding Jr.
Work on our lands cannot stop for anything, as what we plant now shall get us through the long winter, and the last 2 winters proved to be longer than most. It is at this time of the year that the sunlight presents itself for the longest duration. Given our fields were more than 5 miles from our homes, which were close to Jenkins Stockade, and the more secure plain of the valley below, the potential for disaster and distress was profoundly abundant. Equally, despite traveling in union with Mr. Hatel and his party, we were separated by a distance of roughly 1 mile, with ourselves being the furthest north. Of course, there is little doubt that any attack should come from the north, and would be compromised of Indians and Loyalists. Should a larger force of the enemy fall upon us, our numbers would not be enough to subdue any direct assault. However, the work would have to proceed, threat or no threat. My brothers and me felt that we had a chance to evade and perhaps discourage any advance, if we were armed and guarded. We also had the benefit of the river, numerous thickets from the main path eastward to the river, and the dense block of forest to our west. Still, 'tis a lot to ponder, as time spent in our fields was averaging more than 4 hours a day. That is more than enough time for the enemy to exact significant damage upon the vulnerable settlement of Westmoreland.
In fact, a thick veil of consternation hung over the valley, not only from news that John Jenkins had brought with him, but also from several fugitives who had escaped a number of Tories who described the capture of Elijah Wilcox somewhere north of Tunkhannock. This validated the lurid accounts as presented by John Jenkins from his imprisonment and mobilization southward from Fort Niagara. Following their arrival into Wyoming around the 5th or 6th of June, many of the settlement's inhabitants moved into the more secure areas of the Valley Stockade fortification or forts. The Wyoming Valley was now on high alert. Mr. Harding.
In addition to setting up our own guard and settling into the stockade structures within the settlement, several scouting parties were convened to patrol the areas north of the Valley Flats. The patrols went out far up the river, to about 5 miles or more, north of our cornfields. That is roughly 10 miles above Fort Jenkins. If the enemy was planning a surprise attack, it would likely be found somewhere in this area, and so would we. The advantage of such patrols would be to isolate any possible sign of the enemy. Should we see campfires or any other movements, we would be able to ascertain their number. In fact, encounters with any living soul, that would indicate that the enemy is preparing to launch an attack upon our settlement of Westmoreland. Still, the work in our lands had to continue, and the best we could do would be to protect our own and be vigilant for any sight or sound of the enemy, be he Tory or be he Indian. Thus, as it was on June 30th, we set out as we had been doing, traveling with ourselves and the Hatel party northwards towards the fields in the pre-dawn hours as the early illumination of approaching day was upon us. The sun was hot, and the day went on. My brothers and I relieved one another when on sentry duty while the others worked. We would, of course, take strategic water breaks. It was late in the afternoon when 2 men who were known to us, but whose allegiance were suspect, suddenly appeared. One Michael Showers and one Frederick Anchor greeted me. Showers had offered that he would stand sentry, while I might join my brothers in their work yonder in the fields. I accepted this offer, though found it odd that these men would be this far north from the main settlement. After some time, I'm not sure exactly, the sun was beginning its descent beyond the western mountain. I returned to check on Showers and Anchor. I found nothing more than our water bucket lying upon the ground. At once, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I quickly summoned the young Rogers boy, part of our party, to help me with the team of horses. In fact, I was very clear to tell the boy that we needed to return to Fort Jenkins quickly. It was not more than 5 or 10 minutes when we returned with a scene to the team of our wagon. This is when we saw a most horrific scene. As we were situated about 60 or more yards away on the higher ground, we could see Ben and Stuckley heading down to the ravine adjacent to the cornfields, towards a small body of water right next to a deer lick. As my brothers moved further down the ravine, the attack from the Indians in several Tories was fierce. They were able to see the attack, but with little time to prepare. They fought wildly to fend off the cowardly ambush, where they were eventually overtaken by sheer numbers of the enemy. I saw them struck several times, though I could not see them once they fell upon the ground. I knew that their deaths would be quick, though brutal. In this moment, while I could feel everything growing numb, I frantically told young Rogers that we must escape quickly and quietly. We moved westward with the speed on Whitetail. As we were able to find the cover of the woods, I whispered to Rogers that we had to get deep into the woods quickly, where we could not be seen by the enemy. I now know that Showers and Anchor had a hand in this, and that we had to get as far away as possible, knowing that they would probably send a group of men to find us. Our goal at this point was simple: survive and make back passage to the Wyoming Valley to warn the others that the enemy is now at hand.
As we have just heard from Stephen Harding Jr., Benjamin Stuckley and Stephen had a boy working within their immediate party. Young Jonah Rogers worked alongside of and in tandem with the Harding brothers. Though they were separated by some distance from other members of their work party, they were situated the furthest from the river. Young Rogers' father and grandfather were originally from Ashford, Connecticut. Jonah Rogers Sr. bought land in Westmoreland, Wyoming Valley that had been purchased by the Susquehanna Land Company. Both Jonah Jr. and Johnny Hatel Jr. were the youngest of the workers who were present on the day of the attacks on the Harding brothers. As Stephen Harding just mentioned, they both were able to escape. Their escape through the thick woods was harrowing, as they had to travel westward before turning south and east to get back to the main part of the Wyoming Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, young Jonah Rogers Jr.
There was lots of talk about the threats of Indians and Tories. Everyone was worried that we was in lots of danger by going up to the fields to work. Mr. Jenkins was almost killed by him, but he escaped. He got everyone's dander up with what he said. I did hear many people saying that the savages would kill every last one of us, but everyone agreed that there was tons of work to be done, and that it was up to us to make sure them fields were productive. I didn't worry much, as though we had muskets, and the Hardings took turns on guard duty. I knew that if I was fast, and if I had to, I could get away from most anyone. But we had been going up those fields for many weeks now. I knew that they had sent some of our companies off fighting the British. If they were to get back, we would have nothing to fear. That day was typical, very hot. When I needed to, I just ran down the hill to this little stream, went through a whole bunch of tall grass and weeds. I did look forward to getting a drink and soaking my head in the water to cool things off. It was later in the afternoon when I went for a drink and a splash. When I came back up, Mr. Stephen was talking to two men I've never met. Mr. Ben and Mr. Stuckley were still working, only taking a brief break to look in the direction of Mr. Stephen. They was talking for about 5 minutes. The next thing I knew, Mr. Stephen called me to help him in another section of the field. He said those men was going to stand guard while we finished our leg of work. It was a while before Mr. Stephen said we needed to work back towards up the hill to check on the guards. When we got back up there, they was gone. Mr. Stephen walked up the hill a bit more, and then around in a few of a circle to see if the guards were close by. After a few minutes, he tells me, let's get moving. And when the team got back together, that we would need to get back home. We were moving at a good clip, but I didn't think there was any problems. It was probably another 5 minutes to 10 before we got the team hitched and got them down to the main path. It was at that point I saw Mr. Stephen stretch his head up, and in an instant, it looked as though he had lost his color. It was at this point I heard these yells, which I would later learn was some type of war whoop. Mr. Stephen whispered with his teeth grinding, "Get down." Within a few seconds, he whispers, "We gotta run as fast as the wind to them woods yonder." At one point, I thought my heart was gonna explode. But we kept running. Mr. Stevens says we have to get further west of the enemy as they would likely follow the river. But he said they probably knew how many of us there were, that they would know who escaped and who didn't. I just followed him. As we got deeper in the woods, we could hear some distant voices. At one point, we thought we could even see some campfires, but we just kept going, only slowing down to make sure that Mr. Stevens was going in the right direction. We was going in a direction that I'd never gone in, but Mr. Stevens said he knew how to get us back home. He said it would take longer, but he seemed sure that the enemy would not follow us this far away from the river. It was pitch black when we got back to the main flats of the valley. Can't even tell you what time it was, but it was late. Immediately, Mr. Stevens got me to my family, and in a darn hurry to talk with Mr. Jenkins and a few others. I think they was gonna go up right to see Colonel Denson himself. Lots was happening, but I knew we made it out of there, and that seemed enough for the moment. Still, I had no idea what happened to the others beyond Mr. Ben and Mr. Stuckley. Mr. Stevens was brave, his face like a stone. It was as if he had lots to do and couldn't even worry at that moment what happened to his brothers. I couldn't sleep, real sad that some of our people got killed, but yet happy we escaped with our lives.
As noted, there were two parties of workers tending to various farming and other duties. While the Harding brothers led their party about 5 miles north of Jenkins Fort, there was another party that stopped about a mile north of where the Hardings were working. This party would have been stationed near the mouth of Sutton Creek. In addition to having a cornfield located near the Three Island area of the Susquehanna River, the party here was led by James Hatel Sr. He was originally born in Stonington, Connecticut, and was one of the proprietors of the Susquehanna Land Company. The elder Hatel owned a large section of land. He also owned and operated a tannery and was the owner of the valley's first grist mill, which was located near the mouth of Sutton Creek. After ambushing the Harding party, the advancing party of Tories and Indians moved south to the Hatel party, which was split up based upon the various work areas that were spread out. It is plausible that Showers and Anchor might have given the enemy all of the intelligence necessary to ambush the Hatel party. Nevertheless, the Hardings and Hatel families would have to deal with terrible losses. Content Hatel was the spouse of James Hatel Sr. She and her husband had 8 children. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Content Hatel.
Good afternoon. I am Content Hatel. I'm not sure how to work this contraption. Excuse me. I am Content Hatel. My husband is Mr. James Hatel. He is a wonderful man, dedicated to his family, his community, a man of integrity, a man of honor, a hardworking man, a man who loves his family and is a blessing to all of us who know him. 16 years ago, we left Connecticut with our 3 oldest children to assume a better life here in the beautiful Wyoming Valley. Connecticut at that time, of course, a small colony, was filled with people and had left little opportunity for those looking to grow. And we found that opportunity here. Little did we know that when we arrived here, we would come to land that was already deeply contested between the native people who were here and the people of the colony of Pennsylvania. And we found ourselves as unwelcome from both of them and caught up in the wars that had gone on between them for years. Well, after a few years of violence, we returned to Connecticut, but decided we would not give up. We came back a second time and decided to build this community. And with my husband's dedication and innovation, we were able to contribute to the wonderful community of Westmoreland today. Now, of course, besides our problems with Pennamites and Indians, a new problem came along onto the horizon: the current difficulties with England. And of course, like the other people of Connecticut, we took the side of the rebels and support independence from the tyrant and his corrupt government. And we took that side. We were asked to raise regiments for Connecticut, which we did, and our men went off to serve. Those of us who stayed behind worked at everything we could to support those regiments and the needs of General Washington's army. Well, it became apparent over time that that horrible, violent conflict was coming to us. We petitioned the Continental Congress to please return our men to the valley to help protect us, and they refused. Luckily for us, some of those men took it upon themselves to return. And then the horrible events of June 30th took place. That morning, my husband, our son James, and a number of other gentlemen went out to work the fields as they often did. There was nothing unusual about the day. It was a common occurrence, but they didn't return. And then we got the news of what happened to Benjamin and Stuckley Harding. Horrors so wicked, so evil, that this young man should never have witnessed them, for which this man is partially responsible. What has happened to my husband? Where is my son? Where is my son-in-law, Mr. Carr? I fear there are even worse horrors ahead for us all.
Additionally, one of the Hatel elder children, Amy, was married to a man named Daniel Carr. He was part of the Hatel party and worked closely with her father, Mr. Hatel. While her brother, James Jr., would be slain near where he worked, her father, husband, along with the servant Quaco, were taken prisoner and brought before the enemy's Colonel John Butler. After extensive questioning, both Hatel Sr. and Quaco were tortured and killed on a piece of land in present-day Orange, though their graves appear to be unmarked. Her husband Daniel was held prisoner by the Indians, likely as potential collateral, where he remained as such for a period of years. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Amy Carr.
With all the madness erupting before us, there is a great deal at stake. My husband Daniel has been taken captive. My father and brother have not returned. I fear for their fate. Mrs. Jenkins relayed the terrifying account of her husband John's captivity. If it were not for a strong will and divine providence, I dare say he would not have survived. My beloved, my father and James, their fate is bleak. Our Westmoreland settlement is dependent on the life-sustaining crops of grain which Daniel and father labor to cultivate. We are dependent on the flour which is milled from their grain. We need it to produce our daily bread, as well as food to sustain us through the lean winter months. Without them, all shall be lost. The thought leaves me inconsolable. Mother is overwrought with distress, and she is on the verge of breakdown. May God protect us from the evil that seeks to destroy us. We had good news that young brother Johnny arrived back at Jenkins Fort late last evening. He was greatly shaken. Colonel Dennison immediately took him to Dennison to relate the events of the ambush. Colonel Dennison must act swiftly to keep us safe. May God give us guidance and protection through these dark and dismal times.
Following the Harding Massacre and subsequent battle and massacre of Wyoming, the area known as Westmoreland was ravaged. Homes and structures were destroyed as well as crops. Livestock was taken too. Both James Hatel Sr. and Jr. were indeed killed. However, Daniel Carr was eventually released from captivity of the Indians. They would have 3 more children after Abigail. James Hatel Carr was born 1790, Nellie Carr in 1792, and Daniel Carr Jr. in 1795. As Stephen Harding had indicated, 2 men he was acquainted with showed up shortly before the attack and murders of the brothers. These men were reported as Michael Showers and Frederick Anker. Both men were once a part of the Up the River district of Westmoreland. Both were listed as active members of the Connecticut 24th Regiment as late as October 1777. Stephen Harding would later indicate that he was suspicious of these men, specifically as to their sympathies to the British. Both men would later migrate to Canada, as most Loyalists did after the war. It was also evident that Mr. Showers would formally become attached to Major John Butler's Rangers. Given the objectives of the English crown and their strategic plan for 1778, whereby Indians and Butler's Rangers would move south to knock out key American strongholds, and their ability to support General Washington's armies before meeting up with General Henry Clinton advancing from the south, it is highly likely that Showers and Anchor may very well have been attached to British Butler's force, and in doing so would have had the key assignment of providing critical intelligence that would have allowed them to hit the Hatel and Harding parties. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael Showers.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. It is about time that this assembly be told of facts, and hearken to hear truths about virtues such as honor, loyalty, integrity, and tradition. I, as my father before me and his father before he, were born onto this beautiful continent, not as rebels of a disreputable mob, but as the most loyal subjects of His Majesty the King.
Tory filth.
The financing and settling upon this continent was spearheaded by our own mother country of England. And king and country are words that every proper English gentleman understands instinctively. The colony of Connecticut was designed to be an extension of His Majesty. But in these last several years, the illegal and unjust Continental Congress has, with malice in the spirit of the highest treason, sought to replace our sovereign king with its own ruling tribunal. The action of taking up arms against our king and England are simply reprehensible. Such contemptible actions command every one of His Majesty's subjects here in this colony to crush such uprisings like a snake underfoot. It makes no difference whether it be neighbor or stranger. Open rebellion is simply pure evil.
It is a disgrace that I must stand here with this murderer, filthy traitor, Tory, mangy cur, enemy of his neighbors.
You've sold your liberty for the crown.
We've heard enough of the king's promises.
This is what passes for ladies in Westmoreland.
This is what passes for the king's puppy in Westmoreland.
Go back to polishing the
Remember the Hardings.
As I was saying, it is pure evil, and it must be put down by any means necessary. As a wise man hath saith, why should we give up the tyranny of one man 3,000 miles away, when we hazily have 3,000 tyrants within earshot of our own Westmoreland settlement? Speaking of tyrants, what type of quarter should be given to the likes of John Jenkins and Nathan Dennison? 'Tis not enough that they hath drank from this poisonous cup, but now they seek to force all others to do so as well. Their constant missions of coming upriver to the areas of Wyalusing and Towanda to skirmish and taunt those of us who support our rightful country of England are but the very earmarks of tyrants.
He insults your kinsmen, and you do nothing? You say nothing? This man who insults your kinsmen and helps John Butler kill them, and we have no reaction?
Murderous traitor! Blood's on your hands. Cowards!
Get over
At the beginning of 78, he marched a company of some 90 miles north and rounded up some 27 individuals that he claimed guilty of supporting their rightful king. What type of madness is this? And what type of lunacy is it to allow men of that stock to believe that they are the kings of this country? That is what a tyrant is. He gives up a command to round up people, neighbors even, and imprison them simply because they believe differently.
Friend to tyranny.
At least I have friends. In this case, all of the men
Oh,
who were...
and what friends? The gentlemen who support the king, the tyrant of the world, who knows nothing of the colonies here, so clueless that he has granted this land to 2 different colonies, Pennsylvania and Connecticut. He knows not even where we are on a map.
All right, I'll give you that one. In this case, all of the men who had been imprisoned by the tyrant were guilty only of exuding the attributes of honor and loyalty. Ha! If such a rebellion results in the creation of a perverse country of rustics and brigands, I shall wager that it shan't last long. In fact, if the likes of dolts such as Denison and Jenkins were ever to assume leadership here in such a land, they would be far worse than our King George, geography aside. Now, mark me, if one half of this new country were to ever separate from the other, these men would spare no expense or atrocity to keep them under their dominion. Such is the mark of a rebel, hypocrites all. The fact is, the sovereign nation of England has decreed that His Majesty's Royal Greens, led by one Major John Butler, shall...
Murder from New York with his Iroquois allies.
Our friends, yes, shall move south along with quite a number of Iroquois to crush this odious rebellion. As part of this effort, every available resource that could possibly aid the rebellion must be neutralized. As for Mr. Anchor and myself, it is very clear that our duty lies in the assurance that the English crown succeeds in vanquishing this awful rebellion. To that end, our brethren in the Royal Greens and accompanying Indians needed to know the whereabouts of certain key resources. Major Butler is well aware of the strategic value Wyoming represents. We simply had to apprise his scouts of the whereabouts of those resources.
Conspirator in murder.
Does the king pay you well?
He does, actually. We simply had to apprise him of the whereabouts of these resources so that they could be effectively removed. A tannery and a grist mill can provide a tremendous advantage to an army on the move, as well as an abundant crop of corn, which is plentiful in these lands. Indeed, some even call this area Washington's breadbasket. Now, given the directives of our English leadership, these resources must be destroyed, as well as any rebel sympathizers who should stand firmly in our way.
This long-winded, tiresome Tory.
Hey, just because you don't have the vocabulary and the stamina, madam.
Go back to the redcoats.
In the process, traitors who refuse to acknowledge His Majesty's dominion and renounce their support for this rebellion shall die a traitor's death. His Majesty has granted approval to pay the Indians by the scalp. Sadly, most in these parts would rather die as rebels than retain their dignity as Englishmen. To these poor souls I have no pity. As for myself, I shall remain, as always, dedicated to our king and our country. Long live the king, down with the rebels and the traitors, and up with the tide!
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I think that was a fantastic performance. to make a formal introduction. First, to my immediate left here, Mr. Stephen Harding Jr. was played by Rich Jenkins, a descendant of the Jenkins family. Rich is a professional reenactor. He's also a musician, and I also want to say he's a sponsored event. The sound system we have is courtesy of Rich. Rich, heck of a job. Thank you, sir. Next, we have our Jonah Rogers Jr., played by one Lucas Scavone, who is a gentleman, scholar, and athlete at Big League. Lucas also played Johnny Hatel Jr. last year and did a fantastic job. Thank you, Lucas. Okay. Next, we have our Content Hatel, played by Karen Quiones. Karen is also a part of the 24th Reenactors, and she also has a YouTube channel that appears to be popular. She has a vast wealth of knowledge as far as New York City Revolutionary War period history. And the name of your channel is it Mrs. Q?
Mrs. Q History on YouTube.
Check it out. Check it out. Thank you very much. Next we have our Mrs. Amy Carr, played by Nadine Dreyer. Last year she played Bethia Jenkins, the spouse of John Jenkins, and she did a phenomenal job. And she is a member of the 24th. She's obviously a great orator. And what I love is her entire family embraces historical reenactment, even the children. So if you have kids, try and get them to spend 2 minutes on history, and it's a challenge. So well done. Thank you, Nadine. Last and certainly not least is our Michael Showers, Mr. Mark Rossetti Jr. Mark is also the Director of Programs and Operations for the Luzerne County Historical Society. I've known Mark for a long time, and he does a great job at going into character. In addition to his love for history, he also likes fast cars, drag racing, and he also likes to have a pipe once in a while too. So, thank you, Mark. Good job. You also got the kudos for taking those hits. That's a true reenactor. Thank you.
I've said for years that we could make so much money for the Historical Society. Just put me in a dunk tank. I think today kind of proved it a little bit. So, Diana, write that one down. Do that one later.
At this point, I would like to take the opportunity to thank some people. I'd like to first of all thank everybody for coming out here. This is a great event. This is our 5th annual. Our approach to honoring the Hardings and the Jenkins family is this is some of the oldest ground in our valley. We want to do that with the living history. It gives a little bit different take. You have your traditional speakers. This is a way that gets people, I think, more engaged, and I hope you all enjoy that experience. So, but I would like to thank some sponsors. First off, Big Top Rentals. Mark, Sue, and family have been great partners to the Historical Society and to the promotion and preservation of history in general. Thank you very much. Dion Fernandez and Howell Lucy Funeral Home have been very generous to FTF for the last 5 years. We thank them. The Melberger family, having served the Historical Society for many years, we are fortunate to have use of this land that we are on now for the program. The family has made a ton of contributions to many great causes, and we are thrilled that they, in concert with Green Space Properties, have continued the support of First to Fall by letting us use their land. Thank you. Sue Hand and R.J. Tomasic have been great partners to the Historical Society and to preserving and promoting history of all types, especially local history. Their latest work, which, as you know, is a depiction of the fresh graves of the Harding brothers as they might have looked like in 1778, is remarkable. And it's with its beautiful framing, will be awarded to the winner of the raffle in September. Once again, Please see Judy back there in the table if you haven't yet signed up. Incidentally, they did have a recent art show at the Episcopal Church here in town, and they showcased a treasure trove of historical art, as well as giving some lessons in watercolor painting. Thank you, Sue and RJ. Great job. Thank you. Once again, Rich Jenkins, aka John Jenkins in last year's program, and Stephen Harding, Jr. in this year, has provided the amplification for this program through the sound system. Thank you, Rich. Also, we have a big thank you to Miller Rosenthal Associates, Prestige Disposal, and Riley Associates for their generosity as well. Thank you. And of course, we just learned today, as you know, John Jenkins, Esquire, is the benefactor for the hallowed ground behind us. Thank you so much for the work that you do, Mr. Jenkins. I'd like to thank our volunteers. Coach Spencer, thanks for sending your players to help with the chair and table setup that you see here. The 24th Connecticut Regiment, they were here 250 years ago and beyond, and they are here today through their members of their group. They have been an active part of the first fall event since we started. This is our 5th. As you will soon see, we are honored to have them put this as a regular stop in their schedule, as they have a very busy slate of events throughout the year. Thank you very much to the 24th. I'd also like to acknowledge the First to Fall Committee. Mary Portelli, our president, Judy Aida, Cheryl Butera, Tom Oberzit, and though he's not here physically, Billy Rowe. He's always going to be with us. And if you have not yet visited Judy, please do. We would love to have your support in becoming a member of the Historical Society. And again, please remember the raffle, and there's a lot of other things over there too that you can take a look at. Additionally, the following volunteers were a huge help in preparing the cemetery behind us. Mary Portelli, Bonnie Baird, Jackie Brozina, Nancy Rowe, Tom Oberzit, Mr. Holwig, Mayor Ange Alfano, and Mary and John Kearns. The bunting and on-deck graphics banner looks terrific, as does the landscape of the cemetery. Incidentally, John Kearns and I think, are going to have to visit our respective positions, as it's not easy to prune an oak tree from the 1860s. It was definitely a heavier lift than we thought. John, thank you very much. There's a lot of help in doing that. I would also at this time like to quickly acknowledge our WPHS board members at large. Mary Portelli, Judy Aida, John Kearns, Ellen Quinn, Judy Stevenson, Bonnie Baird, Jackie Brozina, Tom Oberzit, Cheryl Butera, Chip Bell, Sherry Emershaw, who is also heavily involved with the 24th Regiment, Drew Smith, and Lauren Holwick. Thank you for what you do. Moving along, as we barrel towards the country's 250th birthday, there are many different events that will pay tribute to our country's history. I know Mary mentioned several of them, but this is a reminder. The monument, the Wyoming Commemorative Association, they've been doing this since 1878 when Rutherford B. Hayes helped dedicate it. They will be there on July 4th. Additionally, the County Historical Society, I'm told, will have an ongoing exhibit at their museum of Battle of Wyoming Revolutionary War period artifacts. I would definitely check that out. And of course, I think the creme de la creme is going to be the Battle of Wyoming reenactment and the Walk Through the Shade of Death, which will be the weekend of the 10th and 12th. And basically, there's a lot of events going on that are going to celebrate this momentous occasion as far as our country's turning 250. If you can get to as many of them, please do. It only helps the promotion and preservation of history. Before we conclude here, the final segment of the program, I just want to put a few things into perspective. As we rightly, and I hope as we vigorously celebrate our country's 250th birthday, remember that our ability to celebrate as such was sown in the seeds of the blood of the patriots like Benjamin and Stuckley Harding. We are honored to remember their sacrifice as their death helped to birth a nation. Few understand how historically viable these events were to the larger picture. Their murders fueled outrage, as we got an idea of here today. That would ultimately influence the decision to undertake the Battle of Wyoming. Following the ensuing rout and massacre of the Valley's patriots after the Battle of Wyoming would ultimately result in the Sullivan Expedition a year later, which would totally remove the Iroquois Indians from New York and basically this part of the United States. And in total, it shaped, the American Indian policy thereafter. A lot of folks don't realize, I know we all do, but many of the residents of Wyoming don't realize that the naming of their state has to do with what happened here. So I think it's pretty cool to draw some light to that. The fact is, there is a ton of history that was shaped, in my opinion, by our first to fall behind me. At this point, it is our custom to adjourn to the cemetery.
Excuse me, can I say something before you do that?
Sure.
My name is Jean Marie Harding.
Oh, okay. We have
My
any other
husband-
Hardings here?
Yes, my husband is.
Stand up, I want to see my cousins.
Yes.
Her mother was Carol Harding, my nephew
Okay.
is here somewhere, there, Jason Harding, and he is local, he lives, and
Hey,
we are
Carson.
the 8th generation from Benjamin Stuckley, and I have a clue.
So at this point, we're going to adjourn to a gravesite burial as it would have happened 248 years ago. Following that, I think it would be good to get a picture of all of the Hardings and the Jenkins as well, because it's a joint venture behind it. So, any
Hatzel's
you
right.
forgot another Harding.
We'll do that in the cemetery afterwards. Anybody that's related to one of our early
You forgot a
patriots.
Harding. Okay, what Harding is back there? Could they stand? Go ahead, stand up. Yeah. Sorry. Once again, thank you very much, and at this time, let's adjourn to the cemetery. Thank you.